The signal came at midnight Greenwich Mean Time, a pulse of coherent energy that lit up radio telescopes across the globe. At the International Deep Space Array in Chile, Dr. Isabella Reyes spilled her coffee across her keyboard, hands trembling as she verified the readings for the third time. "This can't be right," she whispered, but the numbers didn't lie. The transmission was artificial, complex, and coming from just beyond Neptune's orbit. More importantly, it was slowing down. Within hours, the world's leading scientists and military leaders converged on a classified facility beneath the Atacama Desert. Admiral James Richardson, commander of Earth's newly formed Space Defense Force, stood before a gathering of the planet's finest minds, his weathered face illuminated by holographic projections of the approaching signal. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "what we're about to share changes everything we know about our place in the universe." He nodded to Dr. Reyes, who stepped forward. "The message repeats in mathematical sequences we've decoded," she explained, bringing up a translation matrix. "It's simple but clear: we seek sanctuary. We are the last. Our children die. Please help." The room erupted in murmurs. Dr. Kai Nakamura, quantum physicist and first contact protocol designer, raised his hand. "How many vessels?" "One," Isabella replied. "Massive. Roughly the size of Manhattan." The next 48 hours became a blur of preparation. While governments debated response protocols, a first contact team assembled. Dr. Reyes and Dr. Nakamura would lead the scientific contingent, with Commander Olivia West heading military oversight. Their vessel, the ECS Horizon, represented humanity's best-kept secret, an experimental ship combining conventional and theoretical physics. As they prepared for launch, the alien vessel passed Jupiter's orbit. Telescopes captured their first images, a vast structure that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, its surface patterns changing constantly. "It's beautiful," Olivia whispered, studying the feeds. "And terrifying." The journey to the intercept point took 3 days. As they approached, the alien vessel's true scale became apparent. Its surface rippled with colors that shouldn't exist in nature, geometric patterns forming and dissolving like living art. "We're being hailed," Communications Officer Raj Patel announced, his voice tight with tension. The alien transmission materialized as a hologram in the bridge's center. The being that appeared was humanoid in basic shape, but its skin flowed like mercury, features rearranging themselves constantly. Its voice resonated directly in their minds. "We are the Lyrans," it said. "We flee extinction. Our species possesses the gift of transformation, and for this, the hegemony has marked us for death. They believe our ability to change threatens the purity of all species." Dr. Nakamura stepped forward. "How many of your people survive?" 10,000, the Lyran replied. "All that remains of a civilization that once spanned 12 worlds. The hegemony follows. They will reach this system in 72 of your hours. We beg sanctuary, though we know it puts your world at risk." Commander West exchanged looks with her team. Earth had barely achieved interplanetary travel. They were in no position to fight an advanced alien empire. But the alternative was to witness genocide. "We need time to consult with our leaders," she said carefully. "Time runs short," the Lyran responded, its form rippling with patterns that somehow conveyed deep sorrow. "The hegemony ships burn our worlds to ash. They will do the same to any who shelter us." As the team transmitted their findings back to Earth, global leaders faced an impossible choice. Grant sanctuary and risk interstellar war, or turn away refugees and live with the moral consequences. In Beijing, New Delhi, Moscow, Washington, and 100 other capitals, arguments raged. Military advisors counseled caution. Humanitarian organizations demanded action. Religious leaders grappled with the theological implications of alien life seeking salvation. But it was Dr. Reyes who made the most compelling case in an emergency UN session. "This is humanity's moment," she declared. We can cower in fear of what might come, or we can stand for something greater than ourselves. These beings choose peace over violence, hope over hatred. Their gift of transformation frightens their persecutors because it represents change, evolution, possibility. Are we not also a species of transformation? Have we not changed ourselves and our world countless times in our journey from caves to the stars? As the hegemony fleet's energy signatures appeared on long-range scanners, Earth made its choice. Humanity would stand with the Lyrans, whatever the cost. They had 72 hours to prepare for the consequences of their compassion. The first contact team watched as massive doors opened in the Lyran vessel's side, revealing cities within cities, gardens suspended in zero gravity, and thousands of beings whose forms flowed like living mercury. Earth's first refugees from the stars had arrived, and with them came both promise and peril beyond imagination. Commander West stared at the massive ship and its precious cargo, knowing that somewhere out there, humanity's first interstellar war was rushing toward them at faster-than-light speeds. "Welcome to Earth," she transmitted. "Let's hope we all live to regret this." The Antarctic Research Station Echo 7 had never been designed to house aliens. Yet here they were, its cavernous underground chambers now filled with shimmering beings whose very existence challenged humanity's understanding of life itself. Dr. Isabella Reyes watched through reinforced glass as a young Lyran demonstrated their abilities, its form flowing from humanoid to something resembling an earth dolphin, then to a crystalline structure that caught and refracted light in impossible ways. "Remarkable," Dr. Nakamura murmured beside her, furiously taking notes. "Their molecular control is beyond anything we thought possible. It's not just superficial changes, they're reorganizing their entire cellular structure at will. And that's exactly what terrifies the hegemony," Commander West added, joining them at the observation window. Her uniform bore new wrinkles, none of them had slept properly in days. "Latest reports show their fleet has passed Saturn's orbit. 36 hours until they reach Earth." The decision to grant sanctuary had set off a chain reaction across the globe. Markets crashed, then stabilized, then soared as corporations realized the potential implications of Lyran technology. Religious leaders either proclaimed the end times or declared a new age of spiritual awakening. Military forces worldwide went to high alert, while civilian populations wavered between panic and celebration. In the station's main conference room, Admiral Richardson faced a wall of holographic faces, world leaders demanding updates, answers, and assurances. "The Lyrans have already begun sharing defensive technologies," he reported. "Their knowledge of particle physics alone could revolutionize our shield capabilities." "And what of the risks?" demanded the Russian president, her face tight with concern. "These beings can literally become anything. The security implications are being handled," Richardson interrupted. "Every Lyran has submitted to a quantum signature scan. We can track their presence anywhere on Earth. They've been completely cooperative." In the station's medical wing, Dr. Reyes worked alongside Lyran scientists, their minds linked through a technology that translated thoughts into understanding. The lead Lyran researcher, who had taken the name Varian, showed her images of their homeworld's destruction. "The hegemony believes in absolute genetic purity," Varian explained, its form rippling with patterns that conveyed deep sorrow. "They see our adaptability as an evolutionary shortcut, a chance for species to blend and change. This threatens their vision of distinct, unchanging races." Isabella watched recordings of massive ships turning verdant worlds to ash. "How did you develop these abilities?" "We evolved them naturally, over millions of years," Varian replied. "Our home system had extreme radiation levels. Adaptation wasn't just advantageous, it was necessary for survival." An alarm blared through the facility, interrupting their discussion. Commander West's voice crackled over the intercom, "All personnel to emergency stations. We've detected unusual activity in the hegemony fleet." The command center buzzed with tension as tactical displays showed the alien armada suddenly accelerating. "They've spotted our defensive preparations," Admiral Richardson growled. "They're not waiting. New arrival estimate, 12 hours. Dr. Nakamura burst into the room, his usually calm demeanor shattered. "We need to evacuate the facility. Now." "What? Why?" West demanded. "The Lyrans, their presence is affecting our environment. The quantum fields they generate, they're not just changing themselves anymore. They're changing everything around them." Security footage showed it clearly. In chambers housing Lyran refugees, metal walls had begun to flow like liquid. Plant life in hydroponics bays was evolving at impossible speeds. And most alarming of all, human workers who'd spent the most time around the aliens were showing strange symptoms. "My God," Isabella whispered, watching a technician's hand briefly turn translucent before solidifying again. "We're being affected at a genetic level." The Lyran Elder Council, led by Varayan, requested an immediate audience. Their combined forms created a shifting tapestry of light and color as they explained the truth they'd feared to share. "Our gift is not merely physical," Varayan admitted. "It is fundamental. We don't simply change ourselves, we change the very fabric of reality around us. Given time, our presence will affect your entire species. You will gain our abilities, become like us. This is why the hegemony truly fears us. We are not just shapeshifters. We are catalysts of evolution itself." Admiral Richardson's face hardened. "You knew this would happen." "We hoped the process would be slower," another elder said. "Give us time to explain, to prepare you. But the stress of our emergency integration has accelerated everything." Commander West slammed her fist on the table. "You should have told us. This isn't just sanctuary anymore, this is the forced evolution of our entire species. Would you have helped us if you'd known?" Varayan asked simply. "And now that you do know, will you withdraw your protection? The hegemony arrives in hours. They will destroy us all, changed and unchanged alike." The room erupted in argument, but Dr. Reyes stepped forward, raising her hand for silence. The sleeve of her lab coat had risen slightly, revealing skin that shimmered with subtle, impossible colors. "It's too late for debate," she said quietly. "The process has begun. I can feel it. We all can, if we're honest with ourselves. The real question is, do we fight it, or do we embrace it?" Before anyone could respond, every screen in the facility lit up with a transmission. The hegemony fleet had broadcast their ultimatum to every device on Earth capable of receiving a signal. A being appeared, its form rigidly geometric, possessed of a terrible symmetry that seemed to deny the very possibility of change. Its voice resonated with the finality of an executioner's judgment. "People of Earth, you harbor abominations that threaten the natural order of the universe. Surrender the Lyrans and submit to genetic purification, or watch your world burn. You have 6 hours to comply." In the stunned silence that followed, Commander West turned to Varayan, her expression grim but determined. "All right then. You've given us the ability to change. Now teach us how to fight." The transformation of humanity had begun. The only question was whether they would survive long enough to complete it. The first hegemony strike came without warning. A lance of coherent energy sliced through Earth's atmosphere, turning a 20-mile stretch of Pacific Ocean to steam. It was both attack and demonstration, a fraction of their true capability. In Echo 7's transformation chamber, Dr. Isabella Reyes fought to control her newly awakening abilities. Her skin rippled like quicksilver as Varayan guided her through the process. "Don't resist the change," the Lyran instructor urged. "Your human instincts tell you to maintain form, but you must learn to flow with the quantum currents." Isabella gasped as her arm dissolved into pure energy, then reformed. Around them, other humans underwent similar training, their bodies shifting and changing as they struggled to master their evolving genetics. Some took to it naturally, others fought the process, their transformations wild and uncontrolled. Admiral Richardson watched from the observation deck, his own skin occasionally flickering with metallic patterns he couldn't yet control. "How many have successfully integrated?" he asked Commander West. 17% of personnel in direct contact with Lyrans, she reported, consulting a tablet whose surface had begun to reshape itself to her thoughts. "The effect is spreading exponentially. Conservative estimates suggest half the planet's population will begin showing signs within a week. If we live that long." Richardson gestured to the tactical display, where thousands of hegemony ships hung in orbit like a net of steel stars. "Their main fleet arrives in 4 hours. In the medical wing, Dr. Nakamura made a breakthrough that changed everything." He stood before the emergency council, his excitement barely contained. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," he explained, his form shifting between solid and energy as his emotions peaked. "The Lyran ability isn't just about changing shape, it's about manipulating reality at the quantum level. And that means..." He raised his hand, and suddenly the air itself seemed to fold, creating a pocket of space that didn't belong in normal reality. "They're not just shapeshifters," Isabella breathed, understanding dawning. "They're reality warpers. And now, so are we." The revelation sparked a fundamental shift in strategy. Instead of preparing for conventional warfare, human and Lyran scientists worked frantically to understand and weaponize their new capabilities. The hegemony's power came from rigid order and unchanging forms. But change itself was becoming humanity's greatest weapon. In cities worldwide, the transformation spread. Panic gave way to wonder as people discovered their new abilities. Children were often the first to adapt, their minds unburdened by preconceptions about what was possible. They turned playgrounds into wonderlands of shifting matter and folded space. But with transformation came chaos. Some refused to accept the change, forming militant groups dedicated to maintaining pure humanity. Others embraced it too fully, losing themselves in endless metamorphosis. Governments struggled to maintain order as the very concept of physical identity became fluid. The hegemony's next message carried an edge of fear beneath its mechanical precision: "Your species embraces corruption. You will be cleansed." Their second strike targeted military installations worldwide. But humanity had changed too much, too quickly. Bases transformed into organic mechanical hybrid structures that absorbed or deflected the attacks. Soldiers shifted form to survive direct hits, their bodies dispersing into energy before reforming. In Echo 7, Commander West led the first successful counterattack. A squad of transformed humans and Lyrans slipped through folds in space to board a hegemony vessel. The rigid, crystalline aliens recoiled in horror as their attackers flowed like living mercury through their defenses, immune to conventional weapons. "They're so static," West reported back, her voice filled with a mixture of pity and triumph. "They've locked themselves into single forms, single purposes. They can't adapt at all." But the hegemony's main fleet approached, carrying weapons that could crack planets. Humanity's new abilities were powerful, but untested. Victory would require something more than just transformation. Dr. Reyes found the answer in an unlikely place: human art. "Look at this," she told the council, projecting images of human creativity throughout history. "We've always been shapeshifters in our minds. We imagine, we create, we reinvent ourselves constantly. The Lyran gift just makes it physical." She demonstrated by transforming not just her body, but the very space around her, turning the command center into a living canvas of possibility. The hegemony thinks in straight lines, in singular purposes. We need to think in art, in dreams, in impossibilities. Admiral Richardson nodded slowly, his tactical mind grasping the implications. "We don't just change our forms," he said. "We change the rules of engagement themselves." A plan formed, ambitious, impossible, and perfectly human in its audacity. As the hegemony fleet entered the inner solar system, Earth prepared its response. Not with weapons of war, but with weapons of transformation itself. Varian, watching the preparations, turned to Isabella with an expression of wonder. "We sought sanctuary," the Lyran said, "but perhaps we found something more. Perhaps we found the next step in evolution itself." The final battle for Earth's future approached. But it would not be fought with conventional weapons or tactics. It would be fought with imagination, with creativity, with humanity's eternal drive to transform itself and its world. And the universe would never be the same. The hegemony fleet darkened Earth's skies like an artificial eclipse. Their ships, perfect crystalline structures that denied the very concept of change, moved into attack formation with mathematical precision. On Earth below, 30 billion eyes watched the approaching armada, many of those eyes now capable of shifting between spectrums at will. In Echo 7's central chamber, now transformed into a living command center that pulsed with organic technology, Dr. Isabella Reyes led the final preparations. Her body flickered between forms as she coordinated with transformed humans and Lyrans worldwide through their newly developed quantum network. "The arterial points are ready," she reported to Admiral Richardson. The Admiral's formerly rigid military bearing had given way to a fluid grace, his uniform now part of his shifting form. "We've established quantum anchors at every major ley line intersection." Dr. Nakamura's latest discovery had proven revolutionary. Earth's magnetic field could serve as a conductor for their reality-warping abilities. By establishing connection points around the globe, they could channel the combined transformative power of billions of newly awakened humans. Commander West led the defense forces, though forces no longer meant what it once had. Her soldiers were artists of change, each one capable of becoming energy, matter, or something in between. They had learned to paint with probability and sculpt with spacetime itself. The hegemony's first wave struck with planet-cracking force. Beams of pure annihilation lanced toward Earth's surface. But where they struck, reality twisted. Cities flowed like liquid, their structures dancing away from destruction. The very air transformed, becoming barriers of crystallized time. "They still don't understand," Varian observed, watching from the command center. "They see our adaptability as corruption, but they cannot comprehend that transformation itself is the natural state of the universe." The counterattack began not with weapons, but with song. Billions of transformed humans joined in a psychic chorus, their combined consciousness reaching out through the quantum network. Reality rippled. Space folded. The rigid lines of hegemony ships began to waver. "They're trying to maintain form," Dr. Nakamura reported, monitoring the quantum fluctuations. "Their entire civilization is built on the illusion of unchanging perfection. They've forgotten how to flow with the universe's natural rhythm." The battle that followed defied conventional description. Humans and Lyrans moved through space without ships, their forms becoming pure energy when needed. Hegemony weapons found their targets transformed into void or redirected through probability loops. Earth's atmosphere became a living thing, reshaping itself to protect the planet's surface. But the hegemony's power was still immense. Their rigid adherence to unchanging forms had allowed them to master tremendous energies. For every attack Earth's defenders transformed or redirected, another got through. Cities fell. Millions died, their newly awakened powers not yet strong enough to save them. The turning point came from an unexpected source. A group of transformed children, playing in the ruins of Tokyo, discovered they could not just change matter, but change the story of reality itself. Their game became a template for a new kind of defense. "Don't you see?" Isabella exclaimed, watching the children's discovery propagate through the quantum network. "We're not just changing our forms or the physical world. We're changing the narrative of existence itself." The revelation spread like wildfire through Earth's transformed population. The final phase of humanity's metamorphosis had begun. Reality's new dawn. The children's discovery transformed the war itself. Earth's defenders stopped trying to match the hegemony's power and instead began rewriting the rules that governed reality. The rigid laws of physics the hegemony relied upon became more like guidelines, shifting and flowing with the collective imagination of humanity. Admiral Richardson, his form now a constantly shifting amalgam of light and possibility, coordinated the final push. Every story needs an ending, he transmitted through the quantum network. Let's make ours one worth telling. The transformed population of Earth reached out not with weapons, but with dreams. Artists reshaped probability. Musicians played symphonies of spacetime. Writers rewrote the quantum narrative of battle itself. Reality became fluid, responsive to imagination and possibility. The hegemony fleet found itself trapped in a universe that no longer obeyed their rigid laws. Their perfect crystalline ships began to resonate with Earth's transformed energy, their unchanging forms subjected to the irresistible pull of evolution. In desperation, the hegemony commander broadcast one final message: "What have you become?" Dr. Reyes, her form now a beautiful fusion of human intuition and Lyran fluidity, responded for Earth: "We've become what we always were, storytellers, dreamers, creators. We've remembered that change is not corruption, it's the fundamental truth of existence." The hegemony's choice became clear: adapt or break. Throughout their fleet, younger members of their species began to feel the first stirrings of transformation. Their rigid forms softened. Their crystalline perfection gave way to possibility. The war ended not with destruction, but with transformation. The hegemony fleet, unable to maintain their unchanging state in a newly fluid reality, began their own metamorphosis. Their ships, once symbols of rigid order, flowered into organic mechanical gardens drifting through space. In the aftermath, Earth emerged as something entirely new, not quite human, not quite Lyran, but a symphony of both, plus something uniquely its own. Cities became living works of art, their forms shifting with the moods and needs of their inhabitants. Technology merged with biology in ways that made the old distinctions meaningless. Varayan and Isabella stood on a balcony that had once been part of Echo 7, watching the sunset paint impossible colors across a transformed sky. "We came seeking sanctuary," Varayan mused, "but instead, we found partners in evolution itself." "Perhaps that's what we both needed," Isabella replied, her form dancing with patterns of joy. "You taught us to change our bodies, but we remembered how to change reality itself. Together, we've opened a door that can never be closed." Above them, the stars beckoned. But they were no longer distant, unreachable points of light. They were invitations to continue the great dance of transformation. Humanity, once bound by the limits of flesh,